This is Transistor.fm.
This week I got into the meat and potatoes with Mr. Chase Reeves. This is part 2 of our discussion. We talked about the struggles of building products, especially when you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out which direction to go in, what you're good at, all that kind of initial stuff. Then we got into the actual logistics of how they built Fizzle.co. Let's start things out with our great sponsors. If you're creating an application that needs charts or a dashboard, Fusion Charts is a JavaScript charting solution trusted by developers around the world. And their charts work across all platforms, PCs, Macs, iPads, iPhones. You can download a free trial at fusioncharts.com. And if you are trying to manage the software development process and you've got a team of 3 or more people, try Sprintly. www.sprint.ly really brings a lot of transparency to the development process. You and your team can try Sprintly for free by going to www.sprint.ly, and then when you want to sign up for a billing plan, use the product code ProductPeopleTV2013. That'll get you 10% off. Now let's get back to my discussion with Chase. Well, you brought up something that I wanted to talk about anyway, which is, because you mentioned you just had a kid and you were out, looking for work and stuff like that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the struggle, that struggle in the beginning, whether you're, like, if you're unemployed and you have, a wife and kid at home, there's a struggle of, I got to get work. I got to get some income in here. Yeah. And it's kind of like that when you start a business. Yeah. Like at the beginning, I interview a lot of people and I talk to a lot of people, and it seems like some of those folks with a lot of experience that have been doing this for years and years and years, they've either forgotten about the struggle, or maybe they didn't have it because they were young and they had no expenses. But you've got a wife and a kid at the house. You got to pay for those gluten-free crackers that you keep talking about, Yeah. So tell me about that. Tell me about, you're building Fizzle right now. What's that like? Like, did you guys start from $0 a month and you're just kind of building it up from there?
Yeah. So, well, I see 2 things here. First of all is when I was like a few years ago when I was young and trying to figure this out. And then there's the what you just said with the Fizzle building. What was it like to build that up, or what is it like right now? So I'll address both of these one after the other. Okay. So first of all, going back a few years to watch myself try to figure out who I am and what I'm here for. Like, I feel for that guy. I really do. Like, this is part of the reason why I love the work that I do so much, is because I've discovered so much about myself through it. What I was trying to discover in the Jesus stuff was the same thing. Who am I? What am I here for? And I got a lot of it there. Same thing with the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. I've always been kind of hungry for that stuff, looking for insights about me, because I always just I felt like I didn't really know who I was. Or when I'd say something that felt like me, or maybe I said too many things that I didn't know if it was me or not, right? Yeah. I feel like for an upper middle class Bay Area kid growing up here, it's like that's what the struggle is, and half the time you just you just stop asking the question because drugs are so fun. Other times you're just like, you stop asking the question because, like, so clearly this is the path that's set out for me to become an investment banker. Yeah,
yeah. Can I just stop you there? Because I think I can identify with that feeling. I think a lot of people feel like that in this space. Like this kind of space where people are, telling people how they can run a business or how they can build a product, and there's always kind of like this carrot that they hold out in front of you. I don't know if it's a carrot, but this idea that, if you truly knew yourself, or if you knew the secret about yourself, that's it. If you knew the secret about yourself, you'd be able to, kind of fully realize all this stuff, or you're just missing this one piece. And that stuff always drove me crazy.
Yeah, totally.
Because I never knew if it just gives you so much doubt of like, do I know myself? Like, if I know my Myers-Briggs score, will that help me get a better job? If I, do the Colby, so how did you kind of reconcile all that?
I guess I could tell this story. You okay with it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so I was, it was a rainy, this is thunder and lightning. It was a rainy, cold day in Portland, Oregon. There was a young man with a large nose and a parka on walking his son to the park. And so it was sort of drizzly in Portland. It was gray and dismal. I had been listening to some interview, let's say for the sake of argument, it was your interview with Jason Calacanis, or something. I can't remember what I was listening. Oh, no, it was an interview with Jason Fried. And he talked about how the first thing he does every morning is he wakes up and he looks at that sales dashboard and he wants to see which way the needle moved. And I was like, it kind of stuck with me. And then the next day I'm taking my kid to the park and I am just in full on existential crisis mode, right? So I'm walking into the park just around the corner from our house. We walk there. I try to kind of get him to go play by himself, and I fire up Evernote and I start recording a voice note. And in the background throughout this note, you can hear my son like, "Daddy, come play with me." And I'm like, "Hold on, Daddy's working." And I was like, what the fuck is the point? Why am I working so fucking hard? Why would I try so hard if when I get to the top of the mountain, the first thing I do when I wake up is look at a sales dashboard? Like, why on earth am I working so hard? Why wouldn't I just become a janitor, literally clean up other people's shit for a living, get my 2 weeks a year, spend some time with my family, try some interesting drugs, get like super into vinyl or some shit, like play in a super just super decent blues band or something like that.
I like this janitor narrative.
Right? Like I could really go like for the Portland dream.
Yeah.
And I could do that. Why would I try so hard to make something if this is what it looked? Because like up to then it was like, okay, I want to be successful. I want to be successful. I want to be successful. Never once thinking about what do I mean by successful. Don't worry about what that means. Like, let's just keep heading up this mountain because we got to work hard and we got to do the thing and this feels good and yada yada yada. And then I saw this picture, and this is a reductionistic picture of what Jason Fried it looks like at the top of the mountain, so to speak. But I saw him as a guy who's like really done the thing, like built a business he's proud of. He's continued to sustain it. He's done. I like a lot of this, right? We all do, right? They're the love child of every single person who's trying to build their own thing.
Yeah.
But then so I saw that. I was in this moment. My son's in the background, Daddy, play with me. I'm recording in Evernote, like having an existential crisis, and I'm like, so what the fuck is the point? And okay, this is where it gets weird, all right, as if it wasn't weird before. But I was like, all right, what do we know about humanity? Because up to now, like I had been like a total Jesus guy. That framework got totally ripped out from underneath me, and now I'm on my own. I don't get to just pray for my brother. I have to get involved. Not my brother, meaning like, hey, brother, but like my actual brother, my biological brother, right?
Yeah.
So, my life is in my hands. I have full autonomy. I have full authorship of what we do with this from here on out. Like, so what do I want is the question. So I say, where are we going? Where's humanity going? We're going to space. Humanity is in, a million years going to be like, populating the universe or whatever, right? Because this is all the movies and books that I read. But what role do I possibly get to play in that? Like, I don't get to play. I'm not a physics guy. I can't create some. I'm not going to create some fucking rocket or some shit. I don't have an electric car company, right?
Yeah.
So what can I do? I'm just a guy who could be in a pretty decent blues band, So the thing I landed on was I can make people's lives better in small and meaningful ways. How can I do that? Well, I'm getting pretty into weightlifting right now. I really like that. It makes me feel like I'm not a piece of shit. It makes me feel like I'm not a piece of glass. It's really made me had serious changes in how I look at myself and how I live my life. So there's that fitness angle, right?
Yeah.
And then I was like, there's this entrepreneurial angle. Like, I love the autonomy, the creativity better than feeling than like being like all in on God, I love where this is going. But I love that about entrepreneurialism. And I see it as a story that exists in humanity since the dawn of time. Since we were making our first tools however many millions of years ago. This creation, this working with our world and creating and discovering bits of ourselves and how to do things better and all this other stuff. And then it's like creation and connection is what I think. Then you make the thing, you ship, you go and fish. You have this fish, and then you either go to the market or you realize like your next door neighbor has a bunch of sheep or whatever. You're like, I'll give you 20 fish for a sheep, right? This is business. This is humanity.
Yeah.
So I saw this as an essential human story. I saw the autonomy, the creativity, the independence that comes with it. And these are all personal development themes that I've always been interested in. And I was like, fuck it, let's do that. Let's make people's lives smaller. Let's make small people's lives better in small and meaningful ways through the lens of entrepreneurship. And so that's what started me. This is when we were actually creating Fizzle at the time. This is way when we were kind of concepting it. And so all this stuff was deep within me, and I was like, okay, this is the rest of my fucking life. I am going to serve people who want to build their own thing, and I am not the expert. I'm not Paul Graham. I'm not Brad Feld. I'm not Seth Godin. I'm not these guys I look up to, and I cherish every one of their morsels that they let drip from their plate.
Yeah.
But I can pay attention to them, and I can pay attention to as many entrepreneurs as I can over the next 15 years, so that by the time I'm 50, I have got some serious things to say about this, and specifically what it's like to be an entrepreneur, the personal journey of being an entrepreneur. This to me is probably, at least now, where I'm most interested in. Mm-hmm. So that's my whirlwind story.
Yeah. So so there's kind of the existential purpose. That's your mission.
Yeah.
And how do you balance that with this need to make a dollar?
Right? Right? That's a question, Justin. I was going to ask you the same freaking thing. I don't know. You just where do you have the opportunity to make a dollar? Can you try that there, right? So we had this big audience at Think Traffic, and we had Corbett and myself and Caleb, and we knew how to make content, quote unquote. I hate that word, but I have to use it for some reason. I can't find a better one than content. I'm a content creator.
Yeah, it's fine. Let's just take it back. Whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's fine. It's a good word.
We know how to make this stuff. I like that. Yeah, let's reclaim content.
Yeah,
that's good.
It's kind of like there's a hipsterism or this kind of I don't like that word content, or I don't like that word. Well, who gives a shit? It's a word.
There was someone at XOXO. I can't remember exactly who it was, but he talked about that a bit. It was Jack Conte of Pomplamoose. He had a great talk. I can't wait till those XOXO videos go live. It was insane. But
anyway, so you guys are good at content.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
We know how to do a lot of this stuff, right? We know how to build an audience. We know how to create it. We have a big audience. We see this need. We know how to create something valuable for these people, right? Do something that helps people in small and meaningful ways. So let's roll this into we've already sold several products before in our history. Let's make one that kind of rules them all. Let's make the lynda.com of starting your own thing. Specifically right now, your own online business, because that's what we know really, really well, probably as good as anybody else out there. So that's what we did in Fizzle. That's the sort of the issue that we're tackling, the problem that we're solving, because it is for these reasons, right? This is my freaking story, and that's why I care so much about the people who are in Fizzle, because they're on the same journey, and not all of them are going to be successful, and not all of them are supposed to do this for a living, right? But they all deserve to be sort of, creatively fulfilled and building something that they care about versus having their soul sucked away one day at a time,
Mm-hmm. And let's talk about the actual logistics. So when you guys you just had your 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
So that first year, you must be thinking did you have a number that you guys were going for?
Corbett has numbers. We have some number, and I'm not even exactly sure what it is. We have about 760 members or 750 members right now, something like that. I haven't checked today because I didn't wake up this morning and look at my sales dashboard. But we have 750 paying members, and that's only growing. It's growing bit by bit, and we have the conversations about how do we grow this more, how do we make it sustainable, do we get into advertisement, do we do this, that, and the other. But suffice it to say, our monthly nuts are covered.
Okay, and at what point did your nut, so to speak, get were you covered? Did that happen fairly soon after you launched?
Well, yes and no. It kind of did. Well, so we have a big audience at Think Traffic. we launched into them with an email that's saying like, hey, we're going to let 150 people into this alpha thing of this new thing we're making. It's brand new. There's sawdust all over the floor. You might cut yourself on some broken glass. We're still cleaning things up, right?
Yeah.
But you'll get in at this lower price, and you'll get everything sort of for life at this price, right? So we did that, got 150 people in, sold it out in just about 2 hours, which I was just like, no way, right?
Yeah, that's amazing.
This is the first launch I've ever been a part of like that.
But out of how many people on the list?
There was good question. I always say 50,000, but I think it's more like 45.
Okay.
Something like that. So, or 30, something, I don't know, a lot. More, like it took several years for Corbett to build that up, and not all of the open rate is 20% on something like that when you send an email out to 40,000 people. So it was good though. Clearly 150 people right off the bat, a couple hours, do that, spend a month hearing from them, trying to make it better, doing the lean startup thing, right? Launch beta, another 150 in, sells out in I think it was like 3 or 4 hours. Then another month or two of getting the product better, writing more courses, getting more education in there. Kind of, luckily, the best people we could possibly have got into it. So part of me feels like, well, we've made a really great product in Fizzle, but part of me is like, I have nothing to do with it, because so much of what makes Fizzle great, I think our training is sensational, right? Mm-hmm. But then the other 50% of this thing is the community. And it's the kind of person that's joined, and it's the kinds of interactions you get with people on the site, right? This whole communal aspect of it. Yeah. And they just they set up such an amazing, I think something about the way we marketed it, something about our personalities, how it was very honesty, sort of rawness driven, very vulnerable language. It was just very personal. That attracted a certain kind of person, and they have absolutely shaped the way the community looks. And subsequently, what it feels like for someone to join up right now. Mm-hmm. It feels like a very welcoming experience, as opposed to like, oh yeah, what have you made? Oh yeah, hey, I'm here to learn how to get some SEO tactics. I've got a couple of niche sites that I like to take advantage of old people that can't see very well. So whatever. So am I getting anywhere near your question here?
Yeah, and I think like, I'm wondering, how much do you worry about money now?
We do. So we have some. So there's a product that Corbett created a while ago called Start a Blog That Matters. It's a $99 thing. That's a 13-week course on blogging, like how to start up your blog and actually get it to some notoriety and make your like sort of minimum viable audience, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And how to build it from the start really well, so that you're not like, you don't end up shooting yourself in the foot accidentally and you realize it 2 years later. So that sells quite a bit, and we have a good affiliate program with that. So a lot of people are promoting that. We get a lot of traffic to that site, and it sells quite a bit. But that's not where we want to be heading so much. As we want to be heading towards this Fizzle direction. We don't want to be heading towards the internet marketing direction. We want to be heading towards not that douchey sort of vibe that we all kind of sense, but like the best of that, plus this the ability for someone to sort of find creative fulfillment and make a buck doing it. Maybe it's not supporting you and your family, but it's certainly helping you buy some beer every month, So heading more in that route than how do I craft a killer headline, or how do I, SEO tactics to make even the poorest person wealthy, or whatever. The Aladdin fucking rags to riches story of an internet marketer.
So, and did Corbett, was he just willing to share that with you as a partner?
Yeah. Well, so that it took a long time, right? So we started. I was just working on. We did the website on Think Traffic. That was just a contract, and then we did the beginnings of Fizzle. That was just a contract, and then that was a contract for a partnership on Fizzle. And then subsequently, after 6 months of that, it was like, okay, we're going to go all in on this whole thing. So he had other things making revenue outside of Fizzle. I was just a part of Fizzle at that time. Then the bigger partnership for the whole kit and caboodle. And what I was getting into those products for was that these things are making revenue, and we have like big decisions to make about if we stop offering that, or offer that in a different way, or bring that within Fizzle, or do other things that might jeopardize those, $4,000 or $6,000 a month that we're getting from those things that are like really helpful for me, who lives in the Bay Area, paying it's like almost more than that for my rent, Yeah. So, and not to mention, I have to buy these gluten-free crackers for my kid, you know? So those are really big revenue questions and long-term brand questions and story of like creating a movement that's worthwhile, because that's sort of where I live. I live on making something feel really great because it's capital T true. I don't live really well in how to maximize revenue out of this thing or how to this, that, and the other. I can make something feel like it has a lot of momentum if it has that potential for that momentum, you know?
Yeah.
But to try to optimize for growth, like this is where things start just going in one ear and out the other, you know?
And really it sounds like you're just you have a lot of trust in Corbett to be thinking in those kind of places, right?
I absolutely do. He's daddy, I'm mommy. Caleb's the kid. But yeah, I really do. He's great at this stuff. His ass is on the line as well. And so we're both very much in it together. And frankly, he's just been he was really gracious, took a chance on me to develop his website after I hadn't done very much work for a long time. And that ended up being a massively successful redesign. He loved it, and he loved working with me, and he loved what I could bring to the table because I am just that golden retriever type. You know, I'm not going to be able to contribute to the monthly revenue spreadsheets the way that I am, able to just throw together a homepage that sells out in an hour and a half, you know?
Yeah. And what are some other things? Because now you're interacting with a lot of people that are starting. Yeah. And like I alluded to before, you know, people that have been doing this for years and they've already kind of covered their net, as you say. Like, they're not worried about that anymore. It's like out of their mind. Like they don't even think about that. But for those people starting out, what's kind of the common struggle that you've seen, and how have you helped people get over that?
Well, right now we're in the middle of a couple courses that we're writing. One of them is on like these intro courses to Fizzle. One of them's on the business, and one of them's on the entrepreneur. And I think we hear a lot about the business. We can go look at business model generation or lean canvas or things like that. We don't hear a lot about the entrepreneur and what it's like to do this, why so many burn out, why so many businesses, why so many founders end up quitting.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And in that course, which is sort of my wheelhouse, I'm talking I get into a lot of things that I'm passionate about, but basically summed up, it's about setting the right expectations about how long this is going to take and how much work it's going to be. Meaning you can absolutely have a successful business in 10 years. No doubt about it. You can do that. You can do that if you start right now paying attention and learning and persevering. You can make something that somebody wants. You can have a really successful business doing that, making that thing and selling to them in 10 years. So the challenge typically becomes because we don't know, founders don't know, or hopeful founders don't know, they are expecting this to happen within the next year. And they should be thinking about it over 4 years, probably. Yeah. And then also, like, there's this real rush and it's kind of hip to talk about quitting your job right now. And I love telling people they should be an apprentice under someone for a while. Find someone who's doing something you're interested in and work for them, whether or not they can pay you. Let that be your side business for a year. Learn as much as you can. Caleb did this with Corbett, and now he knows exactly what it's like to run a large site, to create a product and launch it, to do all of this stuff, right? Because he's seen behind the scenes of all of that, and he's been wildly helpful to Corbett through that. Caleb's been with Corbett longer than I have. So the apprentice thing, being able to find someone that you like what they're doing and buy them coffee and hang around like Bob from Mad Men, being around them, being helpful to them, whether or not you can make any money doing it, because you look at this over the next 10 years and you see that as a valuable lesson to learn right now. So Brad Feld always talks about he says it's really hard for a 22-year-old to look at the next 22 years of his career with any sort of perspective, but that's what you have to do. It's a long-term view with many short cycles. And if you can look at the next 20 years and segment that into like 2-year sprints and then ask yourself, okay, so what do I need to do this month? You reverse engineer from I'm going to have a successful business in 5 years where I'm just making my, $6,000 a month to keep my head alive. So that means, like, how do I reverse engineer from there and give myself that time? Now, for me, that I'm really sensitive to this because I've been in that mode where I'm putting so much pressure on myself that I can't even fart a creative fart, You're in fight or flight mode, and you're not in creative mode.
Yeah.
Where you need to be in. You need to be able to have that kind of patience and that kind of the ability to network and to launch something into a network versus launching something into oblivion. So all of that stuff is what I would wrap up as my answer to like the just starting out struggles. They're really self-created struggles about how long this should take, and you have all these worries and pressures about I'm not making money yet. Well, it's like that's fine. Have you found out something that people want? Have you made an audience that might want that thing? Have you figured out something about yourself that you're not going to burn out if you spend the next 2 years making this thing, let alone the next 15, right? Can you take some of these excursions to figure out what it's like to be the person who's writing about X versus Y versus Z, let alone try to figure out a little audience from that, a minimum viable audience, so that you can launch a $1 product into to see if anybody there is willing to pay for a thing, if they have money, and if they can afford this kind of relationship, right?
Yeah.
Am I talking to the air here, people?
Yeah.
What's happening?
No, I think that's exactly it. That idea of there's two things there. I think, well, actually, there's three things. One is that there are a lot of us in how can I say this? Desperation mode. So like, you need to make enough money just to meet your basic needs. And if you're in that place, you've got to take care of that however you can, right? Like I think that's one thing you hit the nail on the head. Like a lot of people feel like, well, I'll just quit my job and I'm going to start this thing and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'll be able to, I'll live off credit cards for a couple months and then I'll be able to pay my bills.
Yeah, totally.
And that could be true, but I think you're going to, I love that imagery of like not being creative. It's very hard to be creative when you're in desperation, when you don't know if you're going to make rent. So I think that's the first thing is like you need to take care of your needs somehow. The second thing is like kind of going from that point, like you said, like what are my needs, and then working back from there and saying, okay, well, if my needs are whatever it is, if it's $50,000 a year or $100,000 a year, whatever it is, working back and saying, well, what would it take to get there reasonably, right? And then kind of working back, like you said, and then you actually have a timeline. Like then you have, well, based on my limited experience, and you might put the timeline out further if you've never sold a product in your life. If you've sold something before and you know what it takes, you might be able to have more precision, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
And then the last thing you mentioned that I thought was so good is like starting small. Like I talk to a lot of people, and I think people have great ideas and they've worked on projects, but until you've sold that first thing on the internet to a stranger for $1, you kind of don't know what to expect.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people, they want to sprint before they've walked. And I think that can be hard. Like I see a lot of people that are building these huge complex systems, and it's like, and I think partly because, like a lot of us kind of get maybe, I don't know, ashamed about that stuff, but like, I sold a PDF for $5. Yeah. And because it goes into that, like you said, that kind of douchey
douchey internet marketing stuff. Yeah.
But the truth is, like, you need to start somewhere. And I love going back and like looking at like old posts by like Marco Arment and like Chase Reeves. Like it's so it's refreshing because you read those things and you go like, oh man, they've really developed quite a bit, right?
Yeah, totally.
And you can go back and you can look at like the first products they released or whatever. And the truth is that, like Jason Fried had shitty little database software for managing tapes, and then like 37 Signal's first product. A lot of people don't know this. Their first product was a PDF that they sold for $75 about, what was it? It was like they just analyzed the best e-commerce sites on the web. Like that sounds so douchey, right? Like,
yeah.
Like who'd have thought? But they had to start somewhere. And I think what you were mentioning there, like this idea of just build something small, release that. You've got to start somewhere. So while you're kind of working up to your 4-year plan or whatever, just keep releasing small little things, trying to, try to make $1 first from one person and then move on to, making $10 from 10. And then there's kind of like this ladder.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, like you said, once you make your first buck from someone you don't know online, that's when it's just like, oh, okay. So like in Fizzle, we're building in these like revenue excursions where you do this. It's a 30-day product where you're gonna break this seal, because once you do it once, you know just about everything you need to do it better next time, which will teach you everything you need to know to do it better the next time. But really getting the technology and the sales page and the things in order just to do it that first time, you learn so damn much. And it changes the way you approach the work. It changes the way you approach your audience. It changes the kinds of thoughts that you have about what you should do with these 2 hours on a Tuesday morning or something like that, right?
Yeah.
That to me is what's so exciting, and I don't know, like you said, I love hearing that about the 37 Signals. The fact that their first thing was totally douchey sounding. Yeah. Right. It's like I was just at XOXO and I feel like an imposter there. I did last year a little bit more, because I'm essentially a marketing guy who's learning how to make something instead of sell something. And it just felt like, God, I want to be in with this crowd, but they are actually making things. Like they're the nerds who don't think about money versus, and I'm making this parable up in my head, like about them. That isn't true. The whole thing is about how to do something you love and make money. You know what I mean? Yeah. So the truth is that money is just as essential. It's just an essential part of the thing. We have to be thinking in those terms, and we have to be willing to put things out there. And people are sensitive to whether or not you're in on this thing or not. Whether or not this is a douchey. We have one episode of the podcast where we try to figure. We just like talk about like what is this douchey thing that like how do we not do that? And one of the hardest things about it was like how do we define douchey? Because what I realized is everybody's a douchebag to somebody. Yeah. Justin, you look like a douchebag to someone else. Like when I went onto some site looking at like what does douchebag mean, like it looked like they were talking about people who wear affliction shirts. And when I think of a douchebag, I think of people like in the marina in the city who are like I don't know, like they're wearing topsiders because they saw them in a magazine or something like that. I don't know. It was like a money thing there, and there's something like that. But really, what it comes down to, I think, first of all, everybody's a douchebag to somebody. You don't get to put something online without someone being able to say, "What a douche!" Right? That's just going to happen. Welcome to YouTube commenting. Yeah. Second of all, I think what's essential to douchebaggery is a sense of I have no problems stabbing you in the back to sort of climb up over you. Yeah. And it's this veneer of kindness and of service on the front that ends up being not malicious, not like these people hate humanity, but just that like they're not really interested in me or what I'm doing or in their customers. They're interested in making their nut. Why? Because so they could buy their kid gluten-free crackers. Yeah. Or so they can fund the lifestyle that they want to live. These are fine things. I'm trying to get this same shit, right? Yeah. So it's like even when you are a douchebag, you're not actually all that bad. You're just selling a PDF about the most common e-commerce things. You're just trying to buy gluten-free crackers for your kid. Yeah. But dude, I don't know, for us, for creative types, for designery types, for myself, I'm just so sensitive to that identity stuff. Mm-hmm. It's always been an insecurity that it works against me. It works for me when I'm making the sales page and writing the copy and doing the thing that makes it feel cool and not lame. It makes it feel desirable and not undesirable. But it works against me when I'm constantly judging myself and second-guessing every decision I'm making and asking you, hey, if Merlin Mann saw this, would he think I was a douchebag? Oh, I don't know. It's like I gotta give up on that. I gotta move on. I gotta be my own man somehow. And that's just, frankly, it's a hard journey. It's a hard thing to try to do.
Yeah. Well, I think, and maybe we'll just close with this. I think like that's where maybe starting small and starting now, that's where it comes in handy. Because now, instead of you worrying about what the industry thinks or what the web thinks or what your heroes think, all you're thinking about is, well, what do these people who are on my mailing list or who have signed up to receive my product or what have you, what do they think?
Yeah.
And, and you might release, like, first product syndrome. Like, it's okay to release something and to charge people for it and then for it to not be that good. Like, I think we need to release people and say, it's okay. Like, you might release something and
that release people. Did you have any Pentecostal background?
But the idea of, like, just allowing them to do that and fail and get, everyone asks for their money back. That's fine.
No, totally. But, and half of the freedom of that is just saying, like, okay, make it $1.
Yeah.
Make it $1. Because you could shit on a plate and charge $1 for it. You probably wouldn't feel that bad because it's $1.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly. But now when you get to your stage and you got 150 people that sign up for Fizzle and you kind of have that feeling like, am I a douchebag or am I an imposter or whatever? And then, and it takes a little bit for me anyway, because I'm pretty self-focused a lot of the time. It takes quite a bit for me to get out of that mode and to focus on the other people.
Yeah.
But when I do that, and, like, let's say I created something that was focused on other people and I release it to them and then they come back and say, like, honestly, that was really helpful.
Yeah.
Then all those kind of thoughts of, like, douchebaggery and all that stuff, they're gone because
totally.
You've made a difference.
Because you get down to the smallness, the human on the other side of the screen. You've made a small and meaningful. You've been a small and meaningful help to someone.
Yeah.
And that you're exactly right. That when you come down to the human level and realize, I wrote a post recently on Ice to the Brim called The Third Tier, and it's about, I could try to be Merlin Mann's friend. I could try to get these people to like me, but really I'm on the third tier. They're on the first tier. There's some cool people in the second tier too. But what I've learned is if we go all in on the third tier, on just the humans that are around us doing regular fucking life shit, right? Mm-hmm. They're in the same boat. They're trying to make interesting things. Some of them are further along than others. Some of them are more talented than others. But just like, wow, like this is we're all in this together. We're all lonely people who are looking for connection at the end of the world. Like this is it. And we can go all in on one another. Or I could spend the next 2 hours hanging around the outskirts of a crowd that's gathered around John Gruber.
Exactly. That's great, Chase. Let's leave it there. You folks can follow Chase on Twitter. He's Chase_Reeves. He's the guy holding the pineapple. You can also find him on Ice to the Brim, right?
That's right. You've got it.
And fizzle.co. And is that where your podcast is as well?
Yeah. So, or you can go to fizzleshow.co. That is the podcast.
Right on. And definitely reply at Chase_Reeves and thank him for being on the show. You can follow me on Twitter at MIJustin. And we will see you all next week. Thanks. Thanks so much for listening. Please go out and check out our sponsors, Sprintly, www.sprint.ly, and Fusion Charts, fusioncharts.com. Come back next week where I'm going to be talking to Ruben Gomez of Bid Sketch. Ruben is super smart and has a lot of really practical application stuff that you can use when you're starting your product business. I call him the next Rob Walling. You're going to really like it. I'll see you next week.
Podcast hosting is provided by Transistor.fm. They host our MP3 files, generate our RSS feed, provide us with analytics, and help us distribute the show to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. If you want to start your own podcast or you want to switch to Transistor, go to transistor.fm/Justin and get 15% off your first year.